ジョーの野郎。鬼姫が完全にぶっ潰しやがって。
Oh my god. Hello everyone, welcome to Joe Consumes Cinema. I'm your host. Where do we go from here? And today we have Ashita no Joe, episode 52. So, just did 51 maybe, 25 minutes ago. I did need a break after it. Understandable why, I think. It's weird. Throughout my channel's history, we constantly, get this comment from people in the comments over and over again. You're too stoic. You don't show your emotions. And it's like, I decided when I was going to do this thing that I was going to do it my way. And I'm not your typical reactor, for damn sure. I definitely try and be, more cerebral and more analytical in my approach to reactions than emotional. But at the same time, my most popular stuff is always when I get emotional. And it absolutely does happen. There's like probably a dozen and a half examples of it. That was definitely the most extreme, for sure. And it's probably going to be like a channel highlight reel, from now until perpetuity, honestly. But yeah, I have my approach to this whole thing, and I think it works, and I think it's honest, and it's just the way I want to do it. But man, I think it makes those moments when something really hits me all the more powerful. I would have said the finale to Rome, really, really got me, or The Long Walk, that one really got me, but, seeing Rikiishi and then his theme music came on the way it did, that just, I mean, that may have been the hardest I've ever cried in my life, like, honestly. But yeah, I wanted to get right to it and just kind of rip the Band-Aid off because I think it's the best approach, honestly, and all the emotions in me, they're still in me. It's just, I'm more composed now, and so even though I'm sitting here, and for the most part I'm stone-faced again, I still feel all those things. They're still inside of me. It's just I'm in much more control of them and not letting them out. So, yeah, I can get back and actually do this the way it needs to be done and, don't have to take a day or whatever. I just want to get right to it. But yeah, we're going to be dealing with the direct aftermath of, everyone learning of Rikiishi's death. And I think Joe, out of everyone, is going to take it the hardest. And I think personally he's done as a fighter. I hope that's not the case. I hope I'm wrong, but I think he may just be done as a fighter. Which, I know Sugar Ray Robinson, similar incident where he killed a guy in the ring, and then he swore that he would never come back to the ring, and then he eventually did make a comeback. So I think it's possible we may get something where, Joe says he's done with fighting for a while. He takes a long break, and then he realizes that he really does love it, and honestly, I don't think even Rikishi would want Joe to be done as a fighter. So maybe that's the rationale that he eventually comes to when he decides to, put the gloves back on again. But yeah, I want to get right to this. So yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe. I have a Patreon. It'd be really cool if you could sign up. With that, let's get right to it. Farewell, Rikiishi Toru. Quick reminder to like, comment, share, subscribe. Also consider signing up for my Patreon for $1 per month. You get access to all my exclusive reactions, also a guaranteed movie request. With that, let's get right back to the reaction. Wow.
それに本来ならジョーも一緒に来るべきところですが、医者に言われてあれ以来ずっと休んでおります。どうぞ勘弁してやってください。起き上がれるようになりましたら改めて連れてまいります。君が一時 リンゴに咲かせた花は実に見事じゃった。おい、矢吹城は来ないのかい。力石を死に追いやったご本人が全然顔を見せないってのはどういうんだい。医者に言われてまだ寝てるんだそうだ。相当のダメージを受けてるんだろうけどさ、どうしても来れないってことじゃないだろう。
どうです、様子を見に行きましょうか。
そうだ、そうしよう。
Oh, come on. Leave the guy alone. I used to feel bad for these guys when the kids were throwing rocks at them. Not anymore. Jesus.
そう、あれは矢吹じゃないですか。
そうだ。
あら、見合って見合って。
The papers are gonna write some BS story about how Joe doesn't care.
そら殺しちまった本人にしてみりゃな、式に出るのは辛いだろう。しかしな、線香の一本もあげて涙の一つも流してやってもいいんじゃないのかな。いいよ、白木ジムに申し訳なくてこんな記事は書けやしないよ。あの矢吹って男の胸の中は草も苔も生えていない荒野なのさ。
That's total bullshit. You don't know what's in his head.
力石。
ジョーのやつ、真っ暗じゃねえか、石上がり。ジョー、
おとなしゅう寝とらないかん言うてお医者はんがきつう言うてはったやないか。
陽子、泣いていただろ
いや、すでにもう気持ちの整理がついていたんやろうな。しっかりしとったわ。
事故だからな、ありゃやむをえんさ。
チェ。
ジョー！
ああ、
What? Cut open his hands in the heavy bag. Yeah, the newspapers don't exactly capture this. Oh wow, she's here.
考えるなと言っても無理だろうが、あんまり考えすぎるんじゃねえよ。
手を出しいな。
なあジョー、あんまり深刻に考え込むんじゃねえ。こいつはボクサーの、特におめえのような強打者にはつきものの悲劇なんだ。日本でも海外でもたくさんの選手たちがおめえと同じ悲劇に見舞われたよ。それっきりショックでダメになっていったやつもいる。しかしな、それを乗り越えていった選手も大勢いるんだぞ。
俺はダメになる方さ。
Oh man.
力石の死に顔を見てから俺の頭はどうかしちまったんだ。力石はもう死んじまってこの世にいない。こう思うと頭の中が空っぽになっちまうんだよ。体中に穴が開いてて風がヒューヒュー音を立てて通り抜けるんだ。どうしていいのか。いいからほっといてくれよ。俺を一人にしといてくれよ。
一人にしてくれと言ってるんじゃないか。わからねえのかい、このバカ野郎。
Oh wow. Slumtown coming in handy for once.
見ろ、みんなおめえのことを心配してこうやって。ジョー、ジョー、どこへ行くんだ。
Okay, took some time just to gather my thoughts. Episode 52. Obviously, we're dealing with the direct aftermath of Rikishi's death. They had his funeral. Dangpei and Nishi went. Joe, stayed behind, was told by the doctors to rest. At some point, Joe eventually, gets up and he goes outside, plays with the kids. I guess at first he's just trying to distract himself from, all the things that are going through his head. Unfortunately, the papers, take note of Joe's absence from the funeral, and they go looking for him. Now, I used to feel bad for those guys when they were getting hit by the kids that were throwing rocks at them. Not anymore. You have no idea what's going through someone's head after something like this, and their outward appearance doesn't tell you anything. Like I talked about it before, like even now I'm stone-faced, but I'm still really upset by, episode 51 and also the stuff that happened in this episode. It's just I'm in much greater control of, what's whirling in my head right now. So, yeah, that doesn't tell you any useful information. It really doesn't. So, they're going off to run with this story about how Joe is just callous and doesn't care, and it's just total bullshit. Literally, after they drove away, Joe starts reflecting a little bit, and he says Rikiishi out loud, and then he goes inside after the kids leave him alone, because they can tell he just wants to be left alone. He goes inside and starts, beating on the heavy bag, but he doesn't put on wraps or gloves or anything, so he cuts his hands open. Joe and Nishi return home, and then he just storms out. He just wants to be left alone. He ends up in a park, by himself, and then, surprisingly, Yoko Shiraki shows up, doesn't say anything, doesn't make her presence known, but just observes Joe, and he finally has that moment where he breaks down, and he's crying, Rikishi's name over and over again. And yeah, like, he's devastated by it. How could he not be, honestly? He feels immense guilt, and his chief rival is gone. He doesn't know what he's going to do with his life. As he described it when Dangpei and Nishi finally showed up, he feels hollow, like a wind is blowing through him, and there's just nothing in him anymore. Dangpei tries to reassure him that, this unfortunately happens in boxing, and, it destroys some people, but so many more fighters, find the will to carry on, and, they overcome it. You will too. And then Joe says flat out, I think I'm going to be one of the ones that is ruined by it. And it's this great moment, touching scene where they're in the snow, and it's all, coming down, and Joe just feels very alone, and he tells them, I just want to be left alone. And they won't leave him alone because, they care about him. And he, gets upset and angry, and then he realizes he's surrounded by everyone in Slumtown that came out because they're worried and really concerned for him. Now, it's not going to be easy, and I think it's definitely going to take some time, but I do think eventually Joe will find a way out of this. I just don't see the story end in this way. And, we also have an additional, like, almost 30 episodes left in this series, so I think there's more to it. I think it's definitely going to be a hang-up for a while, but eventually he will overcome it. And you know what? I don't think Rikishi would want him to stop boxing. Like, honestly, like if were possible to communicate with him, he would tell Joe to keep fighting. And you know what? Maybe that's what's going to happen with, Yoko coming up to him finally and telling him that, Rikishi would want you to carry on and not have his death be the reason that we lose two great fighters, Rikishi and Joe. So yeah, I think that's going to be the rationale, and it's just a question of how long and, what kind of process does Joe have to work through to get to the point where he can actually step back in the ring. And I think we're going to get there. It's just going to take its time. But yeah, that's how I see things playing out. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So as always, thanks for watching, and peace.